Fabulous day, and we welcome Rev D. We'll talk about her a little bit more in a moment, but let's go ahead and begin with an opening prayer. Is anyone so called to open us up with a prayer? Okay. Okay, thank you, Ruth. I see you got your hands up. Just, I'm sorry. Yeah, you can go ahead, Ruth. Thanks.
Thank you. It's an honor always to be with this marvelous, marvelous group of spirit embodied. Yes. So as we breathe into the memory of who we truly are and accept that this love, this life, this power, this presence is in us, through us, and as us in this moment, as we feel that life and that power and the beauty and the glory and the joy of being who we truly are. We accept that in this moment, in this gathering, in this indwelling beingness, we are coming to a new understanding, a new level of becoming, and enjoying in that beautiful verb of joy, enjoying life in its fullest here and now. We accept this and we claim it for ourselves and for all beings, because we know that the one that we are is all beings, always, everywhere, across time and space. And as we go forward into the weeks ahead, we know that this love, this power, this peace, this ease, this joy, this heavenly beingness is our right and our life, for so it truly is. And we give thanks always and everywhere. As we say, the ancient claim that henceforth it shall be so, in the word, Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ruth. Appreciate that.
My pleasure.
Okay, so I'm not going to be, sorry. Okay, yeah, great. I'm not going to be talking a great deal because I want to give as much time as possible to Rev D. She is always amazing. And every time you come, Rev, I love the topic, and you expand knowledge for all of us and help us be the spiritually inclusive group that we believe we are by sharing where we're not inclusive, where we're accidentally not doing those things. And so I so appreciate you being here. Just a little bit about you. She's the inaugural recipient of the new Thought Walden Award for Spiritually Guided Activism. She's the founder of Inner Light Ministries in Santa Cruz, California. And she's a founding member of Agape International Spiritual Community. For those of you who've never heard of that, she was the founder of that, at the one in Los Angeles. And she serves in the Leadership Council of AGNT. And so there's so much more that we can talk about, but I'm going to let her go ahead and talk about it. She's also an author of The Sacred Yes and Your Deepest Intent. Those are the last ones that I know. You've probably done some things since then, so I'll let you share that. But thank you so much I know you're busy. You're always on the road, and I just so appreciate you saying yes to being here today. So that's all I'm going to say, and I'm just going to turn it over to you and let you carry on. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, everyone. It is indeed an honor and a privilege to be back with Anton. And yes, I'm on the road in a friend's bedroom, their child's bedroom. But it's really good to be with you. I'd like to do something a little bit different if it's okay with you.
Yeah.
Of course, I'll ask for some questions at the end, but I would like to ask if there are any questions now. And part of the reason why I'm doing that is that I feel like it would just be crazy making to pretend that this is just any old meeting.
Right.
We're a couple of days away from perhaps the most consequential election of any of our lifetimes. So let's just breathe into that. where the whole concept of quote unquote othering is beyond relevant, just absolutely beyond relevant, because we know no matter what happens on Tuesday, the actual election, that we're still living in a collective consciousness. And there's a lot that has to be dealt with it. There's a lot that has to be healed. So I don't always, that's not the way to say it. I'm listening to spirit whenever I'm speaking. So even though I may have something, prepared or whatever, I'm always listening to what needs to be said in this moment. So I want to make myself available first and foremost right now. If there are any like specific questions, guidance, things that are on your mind that you want to talk about, and I'm sure I'll get covered, what it is that I want to say or think needs to be said. But I want to open it up now for anything that is on your mind that you want to have addressed.
Yeah. I would like to just say just real quickly for myself that you mentioned, so it's just so timely that you are here just before we're going to vote. And there's just been a lot of, I feel anxiety around, people are worried or concerned and all sorts of things. And I'd just like for you to address that even though this election has a lot of us talking more than we normally do, there's some things that are changing, all of that. The thing that doesn't change is that spirit is in the house, that we are still, just because there's an election doesn't mean we're not going to continue to work at that collective conscience you just talked about. So I just have to speak to that just a little bit about regardless of who or whatever happens there, we're still going to go to work. We're still going to continue to work at what we know is to be true. And so if you could speak to that, I'd really appreciate it.
Yes, great. I will definitely do that.
Yeah.
And I probably will do kind of the reverse of that as well, because there are so many people out there who believe that because we're quote unquote spiritual, we should not be involved and do things that are going on in the collective consciousness and try to balance those two things out.
Great. Okay. Yeah. I've heard a little bit of that as well. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions or things on people's minds? Yeah, Dr. Biddle.
Hello, Reverend Deborah and Reverend Pjae and everyone. And I don't know if you remember me, Reverend Deborah, you spoke at my ordination back at Inner Visions years ago. So it's good to see you. Blessings, blessings. Being a resident of Prince George's County in Maryland and living right outside the nation's capital, I was in the throngs the other day in the 75,000. Okay. And it was amazing to see. We hear so much about the division. It was amazing to see the different peoples who were there, young, old, all different nationalities, people from other countries, other states. It was just reassuring, and not to be swayed, by thinking that that's everything, that's all of America. Yet it was encouraging to see the possibilities and to stand in that consciousness of oneness. There were some people protesting from other places, but those that were there for the purpose were there for the purpose. And so if we could hold that as a vision for Tuesday, that energy, that consciousness will prevail, I think that it would be wonderful to see the result that I know that we hold. And so I just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Dr. Biddle. Appreciate that. We have another hand up. I don't know if you wanted to say something to that, Deborah. RevD.
I'm going to weave it all in.
Okay. All right. Margaret, you have something that you want to share?
I do. Thank you.
Thank
First
you.
of all, gratitude for this time and space, for making this space. I'm new to Anton. It's lovely to be with new friends and family that I see in little squares all over. And so thank you. And Reverend D, it's an honor and a pleasure to have you with us. I don't know how to formulate this question exactly, but I'll say that I was in a conversation, an actual workshop around spirituality and politics on this past weekend. And I thought that it was going to be space for a lot of dialogue and people. It was pretty clear that people who were in that space were feeling similarly, but the conversation turned into what, and forgive me for this kind of arrogant sounding language, but it turned into sort of these spiritual platitudes and kind of conversation around oneness, and nobody would even say the names Harris and Trump. Right. We're talking about spirituality and politics the week before. And what I found where the oneness was so important to talk about. I mean, the spirituality, the oneness, the love, how do you as ministers and as people who are in leadership, spiritual leadership, how do you allow for space for everything? But I, at the end, shared this contraction of, and we stand for things. And so how do you hold that tension of, yes, oneness and welcoming space, and everybody can feel the way they want to feel, and I'm still going to love people and hold that. But if we're here standing for justice, forgive me, y'all, there's a clear candidate for justice in terms of what we're talking about. And so, yes, it doesn't mean that obviously that the candidates names, you get it, right? I don't need to.
I get it.
Okay.
Yeah,
I get it.
Yes, we all do.
All right.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank
you.
Thank you, Margaret.
For letting me
Yeah.
express that in very inarticulate ways. I appreciate you.
Everybody take a breath.
Yeah.
Seriously. Like, for real. Take a couple of breaths. Okay. I feel like I'm clear now about the direction. Contrary to popular belief, differences do not cause conflict. It's polarization around differences that causes the conflict. Let's let that sink in for a second. Differences in and of themselves don't cause conflict. You want to do this, I want to do that. Okay. There's no conflict. There's not the conflict until we polarize. The polarization is the othering. Okay. And the moment that we get into the othering, the conflict starts. I can't express this enough, because we often think that we have to resolve the differences. And we're spending all of our time resolving the differences instead of dealing with the energy of the othering. Let that sink in. You have to shift the energy regarding the othering first. Let's take some examples of this. Any of you ever been in counseling, any kind of like couples counseling or family or done it, like been a counselor? Okay, so let's just say it's couples counseling. All right. And you have this couple and they're just like, at each other and at each other. And it's always amazes me that typically it's the same issue and they're thinking the same thing about each other. You're trying to control. No, you're kind of control. But but underneath it all, there comes that moment when a decision has to be made. A decision has to be made. Do I want to be in any kind of relationship whatsoever with this person? Okay. And if I do, I got to dial it down a few notches. I got to remember that there's something that's transcendent. There's at least two sides to every story, and then there's the truth. I have to be willing to move off my side long enough. Not the differences of our opinions about something, but that polarized energy of me versus you. Okay. I have to make a choice about that, because until I shift that me versus you, I can't even get to our differences. Can't even get there. Because the polarization has us to the point where we can't even hear each other. When I'm doing conflict resolution in business environments in particular, I'll tell the people, you have to make a decision now. Do you want to work with this person or not? Because if you kill them in the process, they're not going to be around to work. They're not going to be around to work. I get these downloads. They often come in the form of a letter, hence the series Letters from the Infinite. And I got an interesting download not too long ago about our democracy. And I'm always going to be weaving in between the micro and the macro about our democracy. Now, I grew up in Los Angeles. Hence, I grew up with Reverend Michael Beckwith. That's why I'm one of the founders of Agape. And I did my undergrad at USC, University of Southern California. I'm actually third generation USC. And I was there doing Watergate. Okay, just aging myself right out. I was there doing Watergate as a political science major. Sure, I was going to be a civil rights attorney. And at that time, I really thought the democracy was just impenetrable. It was like the Rock of Gibraltar, just this strong, strong thing. And particularly as an activist, it seemed like just whittling away, like little dents, like in a rock. And I'm sure you've been around the last decade, and it's like, this thing isn't quite as strong as I thought that it was. And then I began to think of it like a game. Like, democracy is just a game we're playing. But it's not going to work unless you play by the rules. If you keep changing the goalpost, put a fifth inning in, it's just like, what's going to happen here? Or fifth quarter, I mean. And then I got this message that I want to share with you. It was saying, democracy is a relationship. And I was like, you're right. Like God's ever wrong. Democracy is a relationship. It's just an agreement. When you think about a marriage, for example, that's all it really is. It's just a relationship. It doesn't matter what the laws are, whatever, but it's how are you going to show up with each other? Okay? That determines the strength or the quality of the relationship. And then if you think of it like a family, this idea like you want to save democracy, is that you can't save your family by fighting with the people in it. That's not the way you save it. If you want to save your family, you got to figure out a way to quit fighting with them first. Then you can move on to like whatever the differences are or whatever. You hear what I'm saying? That polarization has to stop first. But here's the good news. You can't control all the stuff about the differences, but you get to control the polarization. That's you. That's your energy. That's how much do you want to be in the place of oneness or not? And it's so much easier to try to focus on the external, the agree to disagree, where we organize around each other's otherness. But there's something transcendent of that. Everybody with me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm going to do a couple of screen shares. I'm going to pull up some material that I think may help. I'm going to go back to Metaphysics 101 for a moment here, because I think it gets lost in the shuffle sometimes. And there are a couple of presentations that I'm feeling like I need to pull from. I kind of had that feeling. So forgive me if I'm jumping around a little bit between the two. The first one is one that I did earlier this year at the Harvard School of Divinity. It was called How to Depolarize, beyond the binaries. And the other is something that I did in the summertime at the People of African Descent New Thought Group Conference at Unity Village. So it's a little bit like between those two. And the second one was a riff off the first one. So there was a through line that was in there. Okay, can everybody see these circles?
Yes, I can.
All right. Yes. Metaphysics 101. There are 3 levels that anytime that spirit manifests, okay, that indivisible, invisible creative substance in the universe, when it comes to manifestation, there's 3 ways in which it manifests. And these are concentric circles. There is a way in which every single thing is like all others. There's a way in which it's like some others. And there's a way in which it's like no other. Okay. So if you use, for example, music, there's like all of music. Then we have genres. All of music is like, there's a way in which all music is the same. Then there's layer 2 where it's like some, but not like others. And then there's the way in which it's absolutely individual and unique. Okay? Like all others, that universal is the place of the oneness and the wholeness. where it's like some others. This is where we get things like identities or cultures, and ways it's like none other. None other. Can you see this where it says evolutionary moment? Or no? Let me.
No, not yet.
Okay, I think you gotta reboot every time you switch. Okay. Do you see
There
that?
you go. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. Some lines got off of there. Anyway, so we're at this evolutionary moment in the New Thought movement. Okay. And what ends up happening with us, so let me explain it because it's like a couple of things that are jumbled up here. The New Thought movement hangs out in levels 1 and 3. We hang out in the universal, everything is all one, or we hang out in the individual. Everybody's just an individual. And it is like the New Thought movement is allergic to level 2. The ways in which we are like some and not like others. Okay. And I know I'm saying some things that may appear to be really critical. I'm saying this I've been in this movement since the 70s. I've been a consultant to all kinds of groups in here. I facilitated the merger of the religious science groups together. I've been like all over this movement, and this has been consistent. And I am a professional diversity trainer. New Thought hangs out in level 1 and level 3. And here's part of what goes on with that in the hanging out in level 1 and level 2. There's some unexamined assumptions. And for us to be able to tackle this, we have to name these assumptions and get beyond them. I don't know what happened to my little arrows, but just imagine this is like a continuum and arrows. Okay. In the New Thought movement, there's this assumption that sameness equals safety. Sameness equals safety, and this safety equals stability. Now, we say we want diversity, but underneath it, there is the fear that if we get into diversity, we're going to talk about differences. And if we talk about differences, that's going to lead to divisiveness. And the divisiveness will lead to destabilization. So we're at odds here with it. We say we want the diversity, but at some level, we are afraid that the diversity is going to bring difference. And once again, as I said in the beginning, we think that conflict is from differences. So if we could just tone down and not focus on differences, then we can avoid conflict. Have I lost anybody here?
I think we got this.
Okay. Any questions about what I'm saying? Because I'm just gonna roll right on. Everybody good? All right. So here's a shift that we've got to make. Oops, that's not the one I want. Sorry. This is interesting. I'm going between two. Okay, here we are. Thank you for your patience. I'm not usually jumping around between a couple of things. So what we have to do is we have to learn how to work at the intersection of these three. We need them all. If we're going to get beyond the othering, we need to do all. When we're looking at something, we need to be able to see it as universal, to see where it's like some, not like others, and not let it lose its individuality. We're able to do this on just about everything but people. Just about everything. We can do this about food. Oh, well, this is an apple, or this is a fruit. Okay, this particular fruit's an apple. It's at level 2. And then there's the apple that I'm holding in my hand. You know, I've got a Macintosh or whatever. We can do it with flowers. We can do it with plants. We can do it with colors. We can do it with everything but people. Okay. And this way that we can see everything else in the world, we have to bring to bear to how we see people. There's a term that gets used a lot these days called intersectionality. Okay, working at the intersection. And most of the time, when we're hearing in diversity worlds and whatnot and about when we're hearing intersectionality, this is what we're hearing. We're hearing that intersectionality is where you don't just deal with one aspect, you're dealing with overlapping aspects. And I just gave an example here of like age, race, gender. And the intersection would be this dark place where it all comes together. So say, for example, if when we say working at the intersections, so if we're talking about me as a person, that would mean bringing all these things to bear, that I am African American, you know, I'm middle-aged, you know, I'm female. And all of those things inform me. One's not more important than the other. Each provides like a lens. And if you take out any one of these, you're not going to really be able to understand me. Okay. I'd be a one-dimensional character, so to speak. And of course, this is infinite in terms of the numbers of layers. But I want to caution you about just this approach to intersectionality. Because what this does is it just deals with those level 2. The ways in which we are like some, but not like others. New thought hangs out in 1 and 3, the universal, the individual. Most social justice work is hanging out just in level 2. That's all it's paying attention to, is the ways some people are like some people and they're not like other people. And that's kind of it. There's not a sense of a universal that at some level we're all the same, you know, or even let's look at this individual person beyond the context of their profile. That's all on that level 2. You are your profile. And that's all I can see. Okay. So we have these, before I go on, we've got these 2 opposing approaches and we can't get anywhere. We've got our spiritual approach that's just at level 1 and level 3. Everybody's all the same. Everybody's an individual. And you got all the social justice where we're all different. And we've got to respect each other's differences. And it's like we're in different orbits. We're just like in completely different orbits. And if we want to make any progress, we have to be able to move to the place of the intersection. Okay, let me see if I've got that here on this slide. I think so. Yes. So if we're looking at it from the oneness standpoint, it's the intersection. where, yes, we're all the same, and we have some differences, and there's each of us on an individual level. Okay. I contend that whether it's your family, your personal life, or whether it's what's happening with us on a societal level, if we're going to heal beyond the othering, we have to bring this spiritual approach to the table. It's like, yes, we're all one. There's no question about it. And there's some very different perspectives. But because there are different perspectives doesn't mean that we are not all one. And we're getting lost in that, in looking at the divisions and looking at the divisiveness. Our movement hasn't been having the ability to hold it all. It's the big and. When I hear, different politicians or people say, well, that's not American. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. If it weren't, we wouldn't be this razor thin, like on the edge. It's an and. It's an and. And until we can recognize the differences within the context of the oneness, and their individual people who are here, we're not going to get anywhere. We cannot resolve any of our conflicts or differences in just level 1, in just level 2, in just level 3. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. And I'll go on to like how this relates to some of the political stuff too. I see your hand.
Yeah.
Pjae.
So I just would like to, at some point, not now, but just at some point, give us. I see what you're saying. I'm getting lost in terms of what it would look like.
Yes.
So I would need an example of what it would look like to live in
Yes.
this intersectionality you're talking about.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what it would look like, and I'm not saying this like trying to like endorse some candidate or anything like that.
No,
I'm just saying,
it's okay.
yeah, like what it would look like.
Yeah.
We're talking about the divisiveness a lot, the pundits and whatnot. And yet there is an unprecedented collaboration that's happening in this election that has never happened before.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
Where
Sure.
people are not giving up their identities. I'm still a Republican. I'm an independent. I'm a Democrat. Where we're finding a way in the name of the relationship, democracy, to say, let's not polarize. Okay, let's not divide ourselves here. There's level 1, the universe, like there's something that's a big enough container.
Yeah.
And you're in this area, I'm in this area, I'm in this area, and there's a center. There's like some place where we all overlap.
Okay.
That is around our love for the diversity. The love for the democracy.
Right.
And then there's us as individuals. There's me and how I speak out, the individual voters, like recognizing that we have to talk to and speak to individual people, because the democracy is the whole, but it's there because of all the individual people. So we can't leave the individual people out. And it's trying to hold all three. You get that there's the big universal, there's the democracy, there's ways in which you're in this camp, you're in that, but here's that spot where we overlap. And then there's all these individual ones of us within this that we have to bring this whole thing together.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Well, I don't want to hog up the conversation here, but just to bring it back down to say a relationship, because this is what this is. Mm-hmm. What it feels like to me, and this feels right, is that if I want the relationship to work, if I want democracy to work, which I do, then I have to suspend the need for you to understand me so that I can understand you, and so that I begin to really focus on what is it that you're needing or you're talking about, and how can I embrace that in a way that I don't lose myself, but how does this, you and I, whatever it is we need, how does it move the democracy or the relationship forward, or at least don't kill it?
Actually not.
Okay, great. Tell me.
No, because that is our typical approach.
Okay.
There are at least two sides to every story.
Yeah.
And then there's the truth. Okay.
Okay.
So to get to this place of the intersectionality, I actually have to suspend pushing my side. And I have to suspend just trying to figure out your side.
Okay.
What is the transcendent? What is that level one? What is that something that's bigger?
Okay.
So,
okay.
Whether it's the fact that we're a church community, whether we're a family, I mean, all these things are coming up. So even if you take, for example, the argument of reproductive choice.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. And we most often are hearing this argument at a level 2. Like a woman's right to choose.
Yes.
Okay. But we got to kick this up a notch. We got to take this to the universal. This is beyond a woman's right to choose. Women are the portal through which humanity is birthed. Mm-hmm. Women, and they're not baby making machines. Okay, so we've got to move up to the consciousness of how our humanity, it isn't just as a species, all of us need women. you know what I mean? And that process of her capacity to be able to birth, that's about all of us.
True.
And how do we make sure that is easy and uplift for like all of us? And if we were to get what I'm saying, is like if we were to start shifting out from just this you, me, what you, but where is this for all of us? For all of us. Yeah.
Yeah. I got you. I understand.
Dr. Sherry.
Dr. Sherry has something.
Actually, Tim has something. I'm just saying.
Okay.
Hi, Tim.
I just have a question that maybe is larger than the question I'm about to ask.
Okay.
It has to do with the idea that you're talking about an election where there are two choices. No matter which way it swings, roughly half of the country is going to be disappointed. So how does a new thought person, using your levels of 1, 2, and 3, deal with that kind of disappointment? And it isn't limited to the practice of what you do after the election. It's what do you do with any disappointment that you have in your life? Mm. Is that you might have already answered it.
No. I I'm with you. I'm with you. I am in the interest of time, I'm gonna try to skip to this. Okay, everybody take a breath.
Several breaths.
Take a breath. You can separate church and state as institutions, but you can never separate spirituality and politics. Take a breath. You can separate institutions, but you cannot separate the ideologies. Every politic is based upon a worldview of who are we? What is the natural order of things? What is our relationship to one another? What do we deserve? All of these are profoundly spiritual questions. They are profoundly spiritual questions. So I'm going to jump now to something that we think of as political and show you how profoundly spiritual it is to answer this question of where is it that we need to stand. Okay. The preamble to the Declaration of Independence. We always think of this as a political document, correct? But really read it. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal and endowed by their creator. You don't get much more spiritual than that. Endowed by their creator, not the government, not with certain inalienable rights. And among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This is a spiritual document. This is a spiritual document. Okay. And our philosophy is deeply rooted in this. Our philosophy started out of a certain socio-political context. We are born out of the collective consciousness of the rugged individualistic self-determination. Okay. The Protestant Reformation, the direct connection to God, no pope. The colonial revolutions, no monarchies, nothing over me. I can do this on my own. The capitalistic feudal lord, I should be able to do this or whatnot, like on my own and get the fruits of it. That our whole entire movement is based in this kind of worldview that we've got a direct connection to God. And that we all have the same connection to God. And because we all have the same connection to God, we all have these same spiritual powers. And the adjunct with that is that we all should have the same political rights and equality and all of the rest of that. That this is where we need to stand. And we don't have to characterize it as political. this is where we stand spiritually. This is where we stand spiritually. So it's like whatever gets us to we're all created by the same creator. What gets us to that we're all equal? What gets us to that we have an inalienable right? And that inalienable is because we are created by the divine. And if we just stand in our spiritual principles, we'll find our way. But because in our minds, we begin to see this stuff as political, and that somehow or another, oh, we can't talk about that. We can't talk about that. I don't care what the parties are. It's like, I don't care about the politics. If we just stand. And that declaration there, regardless of the history of it, don't let them even go there about who wrote it and about who wrote it.
No. It is what it is, though. Yeah.
It is what it is. And the message is no less just because the messenger couldn't live up to it.
Correct.
Old folks used to say the truth will be told even if it takes a liar to tell it. There's truth in that. Get what I'm saying? There's
yes.
truth in that.
Yes.
And this is what we believe.
Yes.
This is what we believe. Now we're just trying to figure out is how in the world do we make it happen? That's what we're trying to figure out, is what's the best systems? What are the best structures? Like, how do we get there? But then you align with whomever's going there. Like who or what is supporting the framework that we have of we're really all one.
We are getting close to time is almost up, and I believe there's going to be you've definitely kicked up some emotion around in my heart, and certainly I'm sure on this call. So I'd like to be able to take a few questions before we get off, and I see Celeste has her hand up, if that's okay with you, Deb.
No, I was just about to do that.
Thank you.
Hey, Rev Deb, you always get me thinking.
I'm telling you, fired up.
So where is that intersection between church and state? Using your diagram, using your model, I know that it is. You showed it in the Declaration of Independence in a document, but where is it in our interactions?
Church and state, I do firmly believe, need to be separate as institutions. However, even as an institution, the government, hold on a second. Well, it might be too long of an answer. Even as an institution, the government, I was going to show you a slide, but I'll just try to say it real quickly, that what we call the federal is like the universal. The federal is like everybody.
Right.
The diversity, like the level 2. So that's the executive branch. Okay. Because we got 3 branches. So the executive is level 1. The legislative is level 2. That's where you've got different representatives that are different interests. And the judicial system is actually the level 3, where the judicial system is taking a look at the laws and how each thing that's going on is actually fitting within what's supposed to be going on. It's like the checks and balances to make sure that everything's fitting in. So even our 3, the way that our 3 levels branches have been designed, it still follows the 3 levels of manifestation.
Yeah, but you got presidents appointing judges across the state. I'm looking at it from a spirituality point of view. I see how the structure is imperfect, but I'm just, I'm going to be with that question of where is the intersection, and I try to speak from there often, but it would be wonderful to keep exploring it further. Thanks.
Absolutely.
We keep with yes. And I'm saying this is our challenge. Our challenge is, given what our spiritual principles are, how do we develop the systems and the structures that reflect those principles? It is an ongoing discussion.
Well, tell me I know about it. I'm doing church in Washington, D.C., honey.
We got another question, another hand up. Let's go ahead and get to that.
Yeah, I got one.
Thank you, Celeste.
Celeste, you're in Washington, D.C., but I'm in Philadelphia. And so we're pretty connected with the Declaration of Independence here. 4th of July, we, say everybody in the country says, when you're asked where was the Declaration of Independence written, they say Philadelphia, and we say 7th and Market Street. And for that affinity. And Deb, I think that you actually had a slide that showed where we are now. That wasn't the 3 branches of government. It's the kind of like the hierarchy of need that we started with, needing our spiritual freedom. And once we got that, we wanted to have our political freedom. And now we have our economic freedom, and it's looping around. So with our economic freedom, we're trying to impose, or people are trying to impose their spiritual beliefs on other people. And it's coming into a loop again. And I think that there's probably room for us to say, wait a second. We've seen this show before. We don't have to do this again.
Yes. And it's going to, until all of humanity evolves, we're gonna keep this loop.
Yeah. And as long as we don't, history repeats itself. I mean, as long as we're not looking at the history, and a lot of people don't, we don't even know we are repeating it. Yeah. Celeste has a hand up.
Yes, the other Celeste has her hand up.
Yes.
It's interesting in that when we're looking at people who have opposing viewpoints, I have brothers on each side of the fence. So, and I always say to people, look for the commonality, because I said most people will believe that we have the right to clean air and clean water. Of course, if you live in Florida, the governor has made climate change illegal. So we have to deal with that. You can't use the words climate change in any of the laws in the state of Florida. And I won't mention his name. But the whole thing is, when you get down to the basics, the unity is there, but it's not uniformity.
Yeah.
And so always look for the things that everyone believes in, whether it be peaceful sleep at night or safe food to eat, running water. I take it up a notch. I want air conditioning and internet for my survival. So you go with what people find is unity, and then let them express themselves differently, because the last thing I want to do is to make anybody over in my image, because that is too much grief and suffering on my part.
Thank you, Celeste. We're just about out of time. I'm going to give Rev Deb an opportunity just to finish this up. Thank you so much for your comments, for everyone's comments. Celeste, what would you like to say, or Deb, what would you like to say before we end this? Thank you so much for what you said.
What I would like to say first off is thank you for coming. Share this.
Yeah.
Continue the discussions that I hope that I've given you some framing. The answers are going to always be like shifting like every day, like what does this moment need? But hopefully that you have some framing that might help you at all levels, from your personal to your professional to the socio-political. And it's an honor. It's an honor being with you. And if you want to follow me or any of the stuff that I'm doing, RevD is my branding.
Thank you so much. You have really kicked up a lot of emotion and ideas and thoughts. It's a beautiful thing. Thank you. Bill, do you have anything you want everybody to know before we go? We are already at noon, but what would you like to say?
Absolutely. And just working backwards, today is the last day to register at the ultra early bird price for the 2025 Anton Retreat, which is going to be October 6th through the 10th at Unity Village. It is already a spectacular event unfolding, 50 people registered so far. There is a quarterly workshop that's coming up in November with Dr. Michelle Whittington and Reverend Eamon Duffy talking about the divine feminine and masculine. That is open to everybody, free to Anton members, $25 to people who are not members. There's going to be another Thought Leader Thursday in November. It'll be a week early because if we did the last Thursday, it'd be Thanksgiving, and we have reason to believe people might be busy for that. The monthly call to prayer is the second Tuesday, and then we are continuing our weekly 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern time meditations on Zoom. It's a 15-minute thing. It is a ton of fun. Anton.org for all the details.
Yes. Can I say just one more thing real quickly? I forgot to say that I do have a workshop upcoming that's going to be on Thursdays. It's called Rejuvenating Relationships. Considering the stuff we've gone through the elections and coming up into the holidays, it's some practical tips on how to do this stuff.
And how do we find it?
Yes, you can go to my website, RevD Now. RevDnow.org, or if you do any social media, you can find it there.
Okay. Thank you. And when did this start? When did this start? Next Thursday? When did it start?
The 14th.
14th. All right. 14th November. Okay. Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for being here. This was it was timely. It was perfect. Wow. Wow. Thank you. Yay.